seats being drenched wet and them sleeping with this, each other's man. The only man that I know personally that has had both of them, he's locked up. Thank God.
The internet is in absolute overdrive right now, and if it feels like every timeline, blog, and group chat is locked onto the same chaotic story, that's because this situation has all the ingredients of a full-blown modern celebrity meltdown. Layers of alleged betrayal, blurred timelines, emotional history, and a media figure stepping in to amplify everything at once. What started as quiet industry whispers has spiraled into a sprawling, messy narrative that refuses to stay contained, largely fueled by the explosive commentary associated with Tasha K, whose reputation for diving headfirst into controversy has once again placed her at the center of a digital storm. At the heart of this unfolding drama are Porsha Williams and Michelle, two women with very different public personas whose alleged behind-the-scenes tension has now erupted into something far bigger than reality television ever intended to capture. For months, subtle hints suggested that something wasn't quite right between them. Awkward interactions, heavy silences, and an underlying tension that viewers could feel even when nothing explicit was said. But those early signs now look like the calm before a much larger storm, one that appears to revolve around claims of overlapping romantic involvement tied to a figure from Michelle's past, someone whose history already carries emotional weight and unresolved trauma. The idea that this individual could have been quietly reintroduced into the same social orbit, potentially in connection with Porsha, is what pushed this situation from routine gossip into something far more personal and volatile. Especially given how tightly knit and overlapping celebrity social circles tend to be. While dating within the same circles isn't unusual, the alleged timing and proximity described in circulating narratives, shared events, mutual spaces, and the now viral phrase "two doors down" paint a picture that many observers find difficult to ignore. Even if nothing has been formally confirmed, into this already tense situation stepped Tasha K, whose commentary didn't just repeat rumors but allegedly added structure to them, introducing timelines, supposed insider accounts, and claims of documentation that reframed the conversation in a way that made it feel more concrete, more immediate, and far more damaging. This shift is crucial, because once a story gains that level of perceived detail, audiences begin to treat it less like speculation, and more like something that simply hasn't been officially acknowledged yet, which in turn accelerates the spread and intensifies the scrutiny. As the story gained traction, social media users began doing what they do best: digging. Old photos were resurfaced, event appearances were cross-referenced, and past interactions were re-examined through a completely new lens, creating a kind of crowdsourced investigation that blurred the line between curiosity and confirmation. In that environment, silence becomes its own kind of statement, and Porsha Williams' relatively quiet response during the initial wave of allegations only seemed to deepen the intrigue rather than calm it, leaving space for speculation to grow unchecked. At the same time, the emotional dimension of the situation, particularly for Michelle, added another layer of intensity, because her history of openly discussing personal struggles, including very real and very serious health challenges, has shaped how audiences interpret anything that appears to intersect with that past. When narratives emerge that seem to touch on those experiences, even indirectly, the reaction is rarely neutral. It's charged, empathetic, and often protective, which can quickly shift public sentiment in powerful ways. This contrast between Porsha's polished, image-conscious approach and Michelle's more raw, unfiltered public identity is part of what makes the situation so combustible, because it sets up a dynamic where every action is interpreted through completely different expectations. Reports of a closed-door confrontation between the two only added to the sense that this was no longer just online chatter, but something actively unfolding behind the scenes, with insiders suggesting that the atmosphere was tense enough to raise concerns not just about production logistics, but about legal implications as well. When personal accusations begin to mirror widely circulated public claims, especially those involving sensitive topics, the stakes shift dramatically, and what might have been treated as dramatic content suddenly becomes a potential liability. That tension is reportedly what defined the alleged meeting with Michelle, said to be seeking direct answers about the timeline that had already been dissected online, while Porsha's response, whatever it may have been, has remained largely out of public view, adding yet another layer of uncertainty to an already complex situation. Meanwhile, the presence of the unnamed ex-boyfriend figure, reportedly incarcerated, introduces a surreal element that complicates everything further, because it creates a narrative center that cannot easily be clarified or challenged, leaving both sides, and the public, working with incomplete information. This vacuum has only fueled more speculation, allowing theories to evolve rapidly and sometimes wildly, as different commentators attempt to piece together a coherent story from fragments. Behind the scenes, networks and producers are likely facing a difficult balancing act, recognizing that while controversy can drive viewership, there are clear limits when it comes to content that touches on deeply personal or potentially defamatory territory, particularly when advertisers and sponsors are part of the equation. The situation has effectively become a case study in how quickly a controlled narrative can spiral into something unmanageable once it escapes the confines of edited programming and enters the unpredictable world of real-time digital discourse. What's perhaps most striking is how little of this story has been definitively confirmed, and yet how firmly many people have already chosen sides, illustrating the power of perception in the current media landscape. In many ways, the facts have become secondary to the narrative momentum, with each new post, video, or comment adding another layer to a story that is now being shaped as much by its audience as by the individuals involved. This is the reality of modern celebrity culture, where the line between public and private has all but disappeared, and where a single spark, whether it comes from a blog, a video, or a leaked conversation, can ignite a fire that spreads faster than anyone can control. As things stand, there is no clear resolution in sight, no definitive statement that has put the rumors to rest, and no indication that the intensity of the conversation is fading. If anything, the lack of closure is what's keeping the story alive, allowing it to evolve, expand, and pull in new angles as more people weigh in. Whether this ultimately resolves into a clarified misunderstanding, a partially confirmed truth, or something else entirely remains to be seen, but the impact is already evident in the way it has dominated online spaces and reshaped perceptions in real time for Porsha Williams. The challenge will be navigating a narrative that questions not just her actions but her authenticity, while for Michelle, the situation touches on deeply personal territory that goes far beyond typical reality TV conflict. And for Tasha K, the controversy reinforces her role as a catalyst in these kinds of moments, someone who doesn't just report on the fire but, intentionally or not, often becomes part of what makes it burn. In the end, this entire situation underscores a larger truth about the current media environment. Once a story reaches a certain level of visibility and emotional investment, it takes on a life of its own, operating independently of any single perspective or piece of evidence. At that point, controlling the narrative becomes nearly impossible, and the focus shifts from what actually happened to what people believe happened. A distinction that can make all the difference when reputations, careers, and personal lives are on the line.